Hey everyone, this is Ben. If you're into video games or esports, I'd be very grateful if you have a chance to tune in to the Esports Business Podcast. It's another show I host that discusses the business and economics of the rapidly growing esports industry. We have guests ranging from pro players and former pro players to analysts to high-level esports agents. It makes for some really fun discussion. The tone of the show is similar to this one, and you can find it on iTunes or Podbean. Thanks again for listening to the Mays MasterCast.
Howdy, welcome to Mays MasterCast. I'm Shannon Deere, the Assistant Dean for Graduate Programs here at Mays, and I'm here with our wonderful host, Ben Wiggins.
Thanks, Shannon. How are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
It's a beautiful day in Aggie Land.
It's not that beautiful, but our guest is from Chicago, and she was battling the polar vortex this week, so I'll take what we get.
Yes,
here.
we have
70 and rainy.
Yeah, we have it. We have it a little better here.
Yeah, true.
So our guest today is Emily Klein, and Emily is working at the cutting edge of branding. She's working with Kraft Heinz, Fortune 500 company, almost Fortune 100. They're ranked number 114.
Emily's going to bring them up to the Fortune 100.
There you go. And, you know, Kraft Heinz has brands everybody recognizes, and Emily is working with some of those brands, as you will hear about today. She is just an unbelievable creative mind. And it's really interesting how that creativity can manifest most effectively in the business world.
Absolutely. And Emily really embodies the Aggie core values and what we espouse here at Mays Business School. And I know Emily's a good friend of yours and was a good teammate for you. And
sure was.
I think you see her loyalty come through one of our Aggie core values and how she talks about how much she loves having friends from the program come see her in Chicago and her time living in a frat house. I think you'll enjoy hearing a little bit about that while she was in the program. But also Emily embodies our core value of excellence. And she gets a little bit vulnerable in the episode and talks a little bit about how it took her a while to find this dream job that she now has. And I think it's just a good example to remember that her excellence, both academically and as a leader, didn't translate immediately into her dream job. And it took her perseverance and really working hard to get to where she is now.
Let's get into it. Our guest today is a rising star in the field of business marketing, an associate brand manager at Kraft Heinz, an MBA classmate of mine, and a good friend, Emily Klein. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Ben. Thanks for having me.
We really appreciate you being on the show with us. So let's start with our icebreaker question. What is your favorite superpower?
I've given a lot of thought, and I would have to say that super speed would probably be the most practical superpower for me. I feel like I get busier and busier every day between, work, my dog, chores, and just getting from place to place in a city like Chicago. And so I feel like just speed would give me more time to do the things that I want to do, like spend time with my family or catch up with friends. So I think that from a practical standpoint would be my favorite one.
So now let me ask you this. If you had a choice between having infinite speed yourself or getting to slow down time, would you still choose super speed, or would you want to be able to slow down everything else that's happening around you?
No, I think I'd still go super speed.
Sounds good. So let's get right into it. What brought you to Mays Business School? You can start with Once Upon a Time. You can start with It Was a Dark and Stormy Night. Start anywhere you want. What brought you here?
Sure. Well, I'd been out of undergrad for, about 2.5 years. And I just wasn't really happy where I was at. I was working in healthcare marketing, and it wasn't something I was very passionate about. And I knew I wanted to go back into consumer packaged goods because I'd interned at a couple of companies back in college that dealt with, more consumer facing products. And when I was looking at different jobs, a lot of the requirements were, MBA preferred. And so my brother had actually just started grad school at the time, and he had given me a lot of insight as to what it's like, what to expect. And so he was kind of an inspiration for me too, and kind of really helped, give me the courage to do this life-changing, adventure of going back to school and quitting my job and putting life on hold. So he was really kind of like the inspiration and really gave me the courage to go back.
Did you guys hang out at all while you were in school here?
No, well, so that was my little brother. That was Johnny. So he was finishing up undergrad at Texas A&M, and then so he and I spent a lot of time together while I was here. But my older brother came down a couple of times to see me, and we would. It was funny because we had some of the same classes at the same time, and he'd be like, "Oh, did you have the case on the chickens and how they were putting contacts in their eyes so they wouldn't be pecking each other?" I'm like, "Yeah, I did. That's funny." So it was a way for us to connect, which was really nice and something unexpected, being back in school. So
good stuff. So you and I were, once you did get here, you and I were on a team together, the first cohort teams that we were assigned to. And one of the many behavioral tests we did was the Berkman method inventory. So you are a Berkman green diamond and I'm a red diamond. For simplicity for our audience, we'll call the red diamond my type, the drill sergeant type. But green is a happy color. Green is the color of life. What does it mean to be a green diamond?
So for me, I had never done an evaluation like this before, and it was a little bit surprising. But for me, it just really brought out the fact that I love to be social and be approached by multiple people. And, I really thrive in like a group working environment. And I think it's just their strength is really bringing everyone together and interacting and making sure everyone kind of has a voice. And so kind of the facilitator of like conversations and like really making sure everyone has an input. So I think that's kind of the strength that a green diamond kind of like brought to the group dynamic.
So I'm going to skip around a little bit here. Along with that, you are one of the finer creative minds I've met in the business world. You're one of the best open world thinkers I've ever met, period. And I believe your favorite game is What If. So what are the best, and we're going to come back to the team dynamic in a minute, but in the meantime, what are the best ways you've found to express your creativity either alone or in a team context, inside or outside your work? How do you get your creative, Jones?
Sure. So in my role with Kraft Heinz right now, I work on brand build and innovation for the Oscar Mayer bacon and hot dog products. And so with innovation, we have a pipeline we have to build out each year. And so we'll have these brainstorming sessions of, okay, like what new products do we want to come out with? And I think that's probably the area where I can be most creative, where it's literally nothing is a bad idea. Like everything's just thrown out there. And you're with different cross-functional roles like R&D and supply chain, and in our consumer insights team. And so you get all these different types of minds in one room. And I feel like you get so many different perspectives, and it just creates a really cool environment to be very creative and come up with new ideas. So I'd say that's one way. And then another way is actually through, this sounds kind of interesting, but writing emails. So internally, we call them quote unquote sizzle emails, to basically whenever we finish a project or giving the team an update, it's about something exciting, whether it's, we've completed a new partnership or, we're about to launch a new product. It's basically just a fun email to get the internal team really amped up, and, you use very colorful language and can throw in a meme or something. And so they're like, you get a lot of mundane emails from day to day. So they really try to focus on popping in fun ones to get people excited, when they open their inbox. So I think those are probably the two biggest ways that I get to be creative in my role currently.
Define colorful language.
Just very descriptive and very unique adjectives. And my boss uses all caps quite a lot. We joke about how he just permanently has caps lock on his keyboard. So colorful. I mean, there can be some might say a little bit unprofessional language in it, but as a team, we are understanding that this is the tone we use when it's just like an internal team. So it's fun. I think it creates a bond that brings us closer together.
True or false? Have you ever seen the phrase, "But wait, there's more" on one of these emails?
True.
Good. I like that answer. So let's go back for a second. Working with teams, you talked about your greatest strengths. What do you think were your biggest challenges in interacting with any team, our Beta 3 team, first semester, or any of the other teams that you dealt with?
I think the biggest challenge for me is, like you had mentioned earlier, the way my personality works. I pretty much have an open mind to hearing other people out, and not everyone is, wired that way, and people kind of have their own ideas and get very set in their ways. And so that would be frustrating for me sometimes when, I might be working with a teammate that maybe isn't as open-minded, and it was just hard for me to understand, like, why are you like this? But, people are different in how, how their brains work. And that, I think that was probably the hardest part for me, is when I was working with someone who might be a little bit more stubborn or not open to like hearing multiple perspectives. I think that's probably was the most challenging thing for me.
What was the best trick you learned for dealing with that? Or what was the best way you learned to adjust your approach? How did you learn to work around those differences between you and others?
I think you just have to learn how to read that person and their personality, and whether it be kind of building into like their idea and be like, yeah, like that is a great idea, but just for fun, like let's see if like we can think of something else. But so I think just acknowledging their idea from the beginning is kind of a trick that I would have, and then where it's like, okay, this is the forefront. Now let's just look at some other things. So it's kind of, I know some people might think that might be a little bit like manipulative, but I think it's just like you had said, the tone you use or just like the way you word it or phrase it is really important for some people. And I think it's just, it's a skill you learn to read people and understand like how they like will receive your feedback or your input, and how you can like facilitate the conversation going forward.
Can I tell you a trick my writing partner uses on me all the time? Because I'm kind of difficult to work with for our audience. I'm a jerk and no one likes me. But my writing partner, he'll come up with a pitch in the room, and like if I like it, we'll start talking through it. And then once we get to the end of the pitch, he'll say, "That was a great idea you had." So he always gives me credit whether it was my idea or not. And I'm on to him at this point, but I appreciate that he tries to make me feel good anyway. So what was, moving a little bit forward in your MBA career, what was your proudest moment as an MBA student, and why was it meaningful?
Well, aside from just graduating, and completing it, I would say competing in the case competition. It was the first case competition in our first semester, and our team won, and it was a national case competition. And this was, during the month of September, where you're in full force with all your classes. You're doing career course, starting to do, interview prep and recruiting for internships. So, we were putting in, 12, 14-hour days, if not more. And there was a time where we were literally, at Wayner till like 3 a.m. working on a deck for this. And it was a 2-week time frame that we really had to work on it. And it was probably the most stressful 2 weeks of my time at Mays. But getting to the point where we're presenting and you just feel so good about it and you feel very confident and know that you have a strong argument, and then just getting the result of the validation that yes, like this was a good concept, this was a good idea, you put in the work, and like now you've gotten the reward. That was just a really fulfilling feeling, especially given that there's so many other things going on at the time. And the fact that it was at the very beginning stages of the program, it just gave me the confidence I needed going forward. Like, okay, I can do this. Like, I can make it through these 18 months to come.
You guys made us proud. Who did you learn the most from while you were here? Which one person? Can be anybody.
I would say Dr. Marcantonio. She was I kind of describe her as the mays therapist. Like whenever there was any issue, whether it be like internally with yourself or with a team, or just, advice on how to communicate with a professor, like she always knew what to say and how to make you think about yourself from the exercises we had done earlier, whether it be through your Berkman or whatnot, and really get to the root of the problem, or so you can find a solution on your own terms without her just saying, do this or do that. And she's just so insightful. I remember just always leaving her office with a new perspective and just feeling at ease. And so she was a great resource during my time there.
What was your impression of Dr. Marcantonio when you first met her?
I would say I had no idea that I'd be utilizing her as much as I did. I was like, oh, this is a nice, like, sweet lady who is going to help us get through these like personality tests and whatnot. And, I probably won't see her anymore throughout the rest of the time outside of like orientation the first few months. And I kind of took her, I think I took her for granted for the first couple weeks. And then I realized, okay, no, this woman is actually a huge help throughout this entire process and definitely helped me learn a lot about myself along the way.
So then in the process of learning about yourself, so you did not start employment right away when you graduated. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Yeah,
so that was definitely a frustrating time in my life because, everyone thinks when they're starting this program, it's like, all right, you graduate and then boom, you start your job and you'll have your offer from your internship and whatnot. And so I spent a lot of my time in the last couple months of the program, going to interviews and applying to jobs. And when things weren't panning out, it was definitely discouraging. And I feel like I'm a very like easygoing person. I don't worry a lot, but that was definitely a time in my life where I experienced extreme anxiety, and my roommates can definitely vouch for that because they were a great support along the way when I was having, a little mental breakdown of filling out probably my 110th application to yet another job. But eventually I got to a point where I realized you're doing everything you can. The right job will come along. It's all about timing. I think that's one difficult thing about graduating in December is that companies really don't have a huge priority to be hiring people the month of December because they're closing out their year. Their people are on vacation. And I think that's something I really realized when I started working in like this, going through the season this year. And like, you really don't want to focus on anything that doesn't have to absolutely be done between Thanksgiving and Christmas. So it kind of delays the recruiting process a little bit. And, I ended up moving home with my parents for a couple months before I started in March. But looking in hindsight's everything, right? And there were a couple of opportunities I had along the way that weren't, I know I wouldn't be happy and be fulfilled. And so I'm glad that I had the patience and then had the support system I needed to, kind of get me through that time until I was able to get. This is essentially the exact job I was looking for coming out of the program. And this was the end goal for getting my MBA. So yeah, it was definitely a longer timeline than I expected. But, for advice for people out there that are kind of going through the same thing, I would say just keep at it. And the key is just staying positive, even when you don't want to be. Otherwise, you'll make yourself miserable.
Thank you for sharing that with us. So you're at Kraft Heinz now. You mentioned the sizzle emails. Tell us, if you can, something else about what makes your day-to-day different than another MBA graduates. What makes your life different from another associate brand managers? How is life different there?
I think Kraft Heinz kind of has a reputation for being kind of a cutthroat environment, and I think cutthroat is not really the correct term. I think it's just it's very competitive, but the people there are extremely, extremely driven, but which makes for a productive environment, people pushing each other. I think for me, the shocking thing that I saw was the amount of responsibility they give to young people at the company. Like our CFO is 30 years old of the global CFO of Kraft Heinz, and we have directors that are 27, and there's analysts that are making decisions that are worth millions of dollars. It was shocking to me just how much responsibility they give people, which I don't think that is the case at a lot of other companies. It provides a great environment to learn. There's also a little bit more pressure where it's like if you make a mistake, it's going to show. But the great thing about Kraft Heinz is they want you to fail, but they want you to learn from your failures and to go forward and not make that mistake again. So it's a great environment to grow in, and a perfect spot at towards the beginning of your career to grind it out and really learn these processes and how the business world works. And I've really enjoyed it so far.
Do you hang out with your coworkers outside of work, or do you hang out with other friends that you have up in the city?
I do hang out with coworkers. Like I said, since it's a lot of young people, so we're all around the same age, and when you get these people who are kind of like-minded and driven, you kind of gravitate towards like having similar interests. And so I hang out with my coworkers on the weekends, like every weekend, but I also have a group of friends outside of work as well that I hang out with. So it's a good balance between the two.
Right. So in your work prior to being at Kraft Heinz, what frustrated you the most about the business world and the way it works?
I think for me, it's when a company doesn't have a clear mission, or the work behind that mission isn't showing, where they say they have a mission, but it's like, okay, what are you really doing to achieve that? I would say that, and then just lack of transparency where, you have your C-suite or leadership making these decisions and you're not really getting any insight as to why they're doing it. And I think those are probably the two biggest things that frustrated me the most.
Okay. So moving to rapid fire questions, what do you consider your most valuable failure?
So for me, I feel like there hasn't been just one valuable failure where it's been this huge thing where I've learned this massive lesson. I think it's a culmination of a bunch of little failures of just from day-to-day work where you make a mistake, but you learn from and grow from. I think it's a culmination of just making sure you don't make those mistakes again. And it's really not one big thing, but just I think it's important to take the time, every so often to look back and reflect and see, okay, how have I grown? How have I changed? And I think that's where you can see a lot of growth personally, as far as looking at the little failures, not necessarily having some big one that has made a life altering change for you. So that's kind of how I look at my failures. It's just little pieces that, over a period of time have helped me grow or change.
I want to pause the rapid fire for a second and jump to something you just said. You talked about reflecting and looking back. What's the best way for you to do that? Do you journal? Do you sit on the couch with a glass of wine and just think about things? Do you talk to your friends? How does reflection best work for you?
For me, I'm not an avid journaler. I'll do it occasionally, but for me, it's more of, I'll have a glass of wine and talk with, my closest friends on the phone, and we'll discuss life and work and everything. And we'll just say, we take a moment where we can't believe where we are in life today. And it's just, I feel like that's the best way for me, because I feel like your friends are, and how they see you as a good reflection of yourself, and they see things that you might not see. And I think that really helps as well, to have another person's take on how they're perceiving you, especially when it's a very close friend.
So you mentioned earlier in the group context, one of your greatest strengths is engaging with others and making everyone feel included. It seems like that is something that is helpful for you as well. When you're reflecting, it helps you to have someone else to engage with. So it seems like there's kind of a feedback loop there. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay. What do you think is people's biggest misconception of you?
I think initially people think I'm just very serious or down to business. Like, let's just go, like, let's get this job done. But I am very like task oriented. So if we have a job to be done, I'm like, okay, like, let's figure out what we need to do, how we need to do it. And then after that, I'm like, okay, like now that we've accomplished this, like, let's be like social, let's go grab a drink or like, let's do this. And so I think initially before people know me personally, they're like, oh, like this girl's just like business and nothing else. Like she's just focused on the task at hand. But I think that's just more like the initial priority. And then as they get to know me, they see, oh no, like this is, you know, she's a fun loving girl who likes to interact with people and build those close relationships. But I think, you know, sometimes you're put in situations where you meet people and there is a job to be done. And that comes first and foremost for me, you know, to get that done. And then people realize, okay, like, no, she's not just this, you know, drill sergeant type. She actually, you know, is more of an interpersonal person. So
I'm going to cheat and pause the rapid fire again, because you keep saying interesting stuff here. So you are, from what I know of you, you're a very experiential person. I think I would definitely say you enjoy kind of living life to the fullest. You're also very competitive. So how do you marry those two aspects of yourself? Sort of the, you know, I want to be out everywhere seeing the world, but also like bringing yourself back to laser focus. How do you balance those two things? Are there any techniques that you've learned to effectively be able to switch from one to another, or do you just run it all on instinct?
I think for me, it's just making sure I have an outlet outside of work to experience things. Like, yes, you know, sometimes you have to put in a lot of hours during the week and you might not have time. But like for me, I always make it a priority to go and play volleyball. And I'm like, that's an area where I can really get my competitive drive, an outlet for that. You're very good at it too. And it's something I love and will continue to do until I can't walk anymore. So like just making that a priority, or like making sure to have some time to just like go out and like see, you know, a show or go to a museum, just something. I always try to make sure I at least do 2 things a week that are something that isn't related to work, or just like doing your basic chores around the house, or just, you know, your day-to-day stuff. And I think it's important to just like make that a priority outside of work. Cause I think a lot of people do get kind of sucked into their day-to-day routine. And that's when they kind of like are like, what am I doing? Like, there's so much other things I could be doing. I think as long as you keep little pieces of it in each week, that really helps a lot.
If you could have anyone as a mentor for one day, who would it be?
Oh, that's a difficult question.
Take your time, living or dead.
You know, honestly, I feel like this is kind of a cop-out answer, but my dad has taught me so much. He is in the same profession. He's in marketing for a CPG company, and he's the one who really ignited that passion for it when I was younger. And it's great now that I'm an adult and we can talk about it as well. But there are things, since he works for a competing company, that we can't talk about. So it would be ideal. You know, I feel like he's taught me so much and has had so much experience with so many different companies. And like he had his own like marketing consulting firm for a while, and just he's had so much breadth of experience and I know how much I've learned from him already, that I would love to continue to learn from him along the way. So I feel like that would be the dream for me, is to like work under my father eventually, just because I feel like he has really kind of guided me along this path and a big part of why I'm doing what I'm doing today.
That's so sweet. I love that answer. Okay, so what is your fondest memory, not to be confused with your proudest moment, but fondest memory of Texas A&M, of Mays Business School? Or one or the other, either one. So
it's more of a time period. I would say living with, you know, 12 other of the MBA students in a house together for my last semester, which sounds a bit odd, but it was just such a cool experience to really build such close friendships with such a large group of people. And it was an amazing support system to have. And also, you know, we had a lot of fun hanging out together and have a lot of fun stories that really created an extreme bond between us. And I'm still very close with all of them. And it's a group of people that I definitely feel like I could call at any hour of the day and any one of them would be there for me. So I would say just like the last semester of living with those people was probably one of the best time periods of my adult life.
So how did you guys even get into that house? I've always been fascinated by how that happens.
So this was around March of the first year. And one of the guys in our program, Burke, he went to A&M for undergrad and was a part of a fraternity. And he was on the alumni board for that fraternity and was the treasurer of the alumni board.
I like this story already.
So this fraternity got kicked off of campus, but it was Burke's job as a treasurer to basically sell the house. So at this point, you know, we're all looking at different leases for the last 6 months of school, and being in a college town, 6-month leases are not very popular with apartment complexes. And so they're pretty hard to find, or they're very expensive. So sure. Burke throws out the idea, hey guys, why don't we just live in this house while I try to find a buyer for it, and we can just finish out the school year there.
It was the same house. Or was it
Yes.
It the same house?
Yes.
I love it.
So this frat house, an abandoned frat house, essentially is not a typical Greek row house. So this was a ranch, a house on 6 acres of land, you know, out in the country, with a iron gate that you drive in, a long drive with a big parking lot. With the main house, you have a garage with a 3-bedroom apartment above it, and then another dorm building with a covered pavilion in the back, which was the size of a basketball court, and a deck. You know, we were surrounded by trees and had, you know, horses and cows as neighbors. And so just out in the middle of nowhere, you have 3 girls and I think 11 guys living in this place together, with a total of, I think the highest amount of dogs we had were 7, because we had a couple strays that were randomly adopted along the way.
Nice.
So just imagine this, you know, compound with 14, you know, mid 20s to early 30-year-old adults and dogs just running around everywhere for 5 months. And it led to some very interesting experiences and a lot of great stories.
When you first showed up there, was Burke talking to himself, like, hello, my old friend? Was he telling stories about back in the day?
Yeah. And I was like, I don't want to hear the stories. The first time we got there, we did a very deep clean of the place. I think I went through about 3 gallons of bleach just for my room alone. But
smart.
It was a rocky start, you know, getting the place into a livable condition. But you know, we made it home, and we had a great time. We had, you know, family dinners where we would just line up, you know, 3 janky tables with different chairs, but we'd all be sitting around, you know, having wine and eating spaghetti and just laughing and telling stories. And it was a very unique experience that I think the majority of people will never ever have in their life. So I think it was just one of those things that it's a once in a lifetime experience, and I think we definitely made the most of it.
What is it about last semesters? There's something about last semesters that always seems special, whether it's high school or college or business school. I don't know what question I'm asking here, but if you have something super insightful to say, you're welcome to say it.
Yeah, I think it's that impending notion of life is about to change drastically. Oh. So let's just enjoy the time we have here and go all out. You know, let's, you know, it's a Tuesday night. Sure, let's go and play bingo somewhere. Or I think you're just more apt to do more things because you're I just want to take full advantage of this life I'm living right now. Because, I mean, not many 25-year-olds can, say at 1:00 on a Wednesday afternoon, they can just go to a rec center and play volleyball with a group of friends and like, let's go grab smoothies after. But okay, now we're going to be studying till 1 a.m. Like, it's just a very flexible lifestyle that I think, you have control over. Whereas in the real world, it's much more structured. And I think just knowing that was coming, we just wanted to take full advantage of living that college life as grown adults.
Well, that's why after we graduated from the MBA program, I did everything I can to stay next to business school, including hosting this podcast. So I'm glad we're here. We close each session with Good Bull. This is an opportunity to recognize someone else for something good or great they have done. Emily Klein, do you have someone you would like to send some Good Bull?
I would just have to say I have multiple people. So I've counted since I've moved to Chicago. I've had 11 fellow classmates from Texas A&M come and visit, whether it be just to see me or on a business trip, but they made the time to grab dinner. And I just appreciate the effort that these people made to like keep these relationships, going, and showing that this wasn't just, we know each other in school, like, and that's it. It's no, we care about you and we're going to have a lifelong friendship. So to everyone that's come to Chicago, thank you. And if anyone does find themselves in Chicago, please give me a call and I'd be more than happy to show you where you can get the best pizza or the best hot dog, whatever your preference would be.
Are you a deep dish? No. Pizza girl? No?
No, not at all. I'm a Neapolitan style.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. Yep. I know that's like anti-Chicago, but you'd be surprised how many Chicagoans do not like deep dish pizza.
Duly noted. That's the inside of the day
I would say about 75% do not like it.
Interesting. All right.
Yeah.
Noted. So, Emily, thank you so much for taking the time to come on and talk with us from a great distance. And we really appreciate your time.
Well, thanks for having me. I feel very special to have gotten chosen to participate in the podcast. So I appreciate it. And it's been great catching up.
Gig 'em.
Have a good one.
All right, thanks for listening to the episode, and thank you, Emily, for being on. We hope you enjoyed that, and we're going to do a little bit different format for the end of our show today and talk about kind of the key takeaways that we got from Emily's episode.
Right. So with that, Shannon, what are your MasterCast top 3 takeaways for today?
Absolutely. One of the things that always stands out to me about Emily's story and 11 other students from the program is their last semester in the frat house. I remember when they told us they were going to be living in a frat house, not that they needed our permission, they just told us about this opportunity. I thought, oh no, this is going to be just a disaster.
Something's going to go wrong.
We are a top nationally ranked, internationally ranked MBA program, and we have students living in a frat house. This cannot be good. Right. And fortunately, all of the students who lived in the frat house were exemplary human beings who they opened up the house to all of their peers and to program events. By the first month they were living there, I thought the program should buy this house because we're always looking for great venues to do events, and having 6 acres and a pavilion. They did dances, they did Diwali, the Indian Festival of Lights. They had all kinds of events out there at their house, and it was a really neat experience for them and for us as a program because they were so welcoming.
When I heard frat house, maybe this is just me being a little bit of an older generation than current fraternity students, but I felt sort of I was worried it might be a little bit exclusive, and it was the farthest thing in the world from that. So good on them for making it that way and for helping everyone feel included. And it really worked out as well as it possibly could have.
It really did. It was not maybe how it sounds initially. For our next takeaway, I thought I really appreciated Emily's honesty about not finding a job immediately after graduation and that taking some time. And I think Emily alluded to this, having the luxury and support system to do that, to be able to be patient and not take the first thing that came her way. And she really did end up with her dream job. And I think I don't know. I just wanted to hear your thoughts on that. I know you've seen your class. I've seen a lot of students kind of go through that process of the job search. And I think one of the things that Emily said was, if you just keep doing everything you can, success will happen. And I think that's something that I've seen to be true. Students who continue to work with our career management center, students who continue to do the things that they say, end up successful. And I think that may look different for each student. It may not be, we have a lot of students who come in and want to go into consulting or investment banking. And those are hard things to break into. And we have a lot of students that do. And we have some students that don't end up realizing that dream. And it's hard. It's a hard adjustment to go from this is exactly what I want to do to I may have to go to plan B. And plan B is still great, but it's not that dream job. So I don't know, seeing people navigate that's been interesting.
I think when we're young, we're taught that if you work hard, that you can be whatever you want to be. And there's an expression of that is true, but there's also an expression of that that's not true for anyone. Like if you want to be a Fortune 100 CEO, you are going to work long hours for big pieces of your career. And there are sacrifices that involves. Like there's more to that than just persistence and stick-to-itiveness and cultivating your talent. Like there are other pieces of your life that you're going to have to give in order to make that happen. And so much of life is trade-offs.
One of the things that, we teach in the program is strengths. And I think one of the things that strengths talk us about is really trying to capitalize on those strengths and not necessarily trying to focus on improving your weaknesses. And to me, the example you used with a Fortune 100 CEO is a good one because not everyone can just say, I want to work that hard and be a Fortune 100 CEO. It's not always a choice, right? Mm-hmm. Some of us have different energy levels or different social abilities. You may exhaust yourself by being around people or by working that hard. And so we have kind of physical limitations and ability limitations and all of those things that kind of drive our path. Mm-hmm. And fighting against that is not always effective.
That's true. All right. What's the last one?
Our last takeaway, I think, is you talked a little bit about working with your writing partner and how at the end of every idea, he gives you credit, even if it's not your idea, which may just be him manipulating you into feeling like it was your idea. So you have more buy-in. But
he knows at this point, I know what's up.
Right.
He's over the top with it. What a superb idea you just had.
But I think something that has come up recently in our program, Professor Krychek was talking to some students and I was in a session with him listening, and he kept driving home the point that at some point in your career, it's not about you looking successful. It's really about making other people look successful. And I think that's so important. And that was something that Emily talked a little bit about and you added on with your experience with your writing partner, but that ability to make other people look successful and how much that does for your organization and for your career. And even I think there's something about the altruistic feeling of making someone else successful that is more sustainable than the effort put into making yourself look successful. Like that's exhausting and tiring, and at some point it needs to be about making someone else look successful. But I think that's also a hard transition for someone who's really driven, who maybe has spent most of their career trying to make themselves look successful. It's kind of like that book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There, and making that turn of I need to look successful to I need to make other people look successful.
It's tricky because, and I think this is actually something that has become trickier. I think certain things in business and in life have gotten easier over time. This is one that has gotten harder over time because becoming a person of influence often involves promoting yourself. And there's not necessarily anything wrong with that. It's not a dynamic that I'm a huge fan of, but I understand, like I'm in that respect, I'm not going to be an old guy yelling at the sky and saying this should be different. It's not different. That's the way it is. At the same time, I do think that there's still, as you said, so much to be said for allowing the company you keep to speak for you and talking up the people that you care about and the people that you associate with, and just allowing yourself to look good by association.
David Wiggins, one of our guests, who happens to also be your very wise brother, used the analogy of the mirror window leadership style, that when something goes wrong, you need to look in the mirror and reflect back on you. But when something goes right, you need to look through the window and be able to give other people credit for that, and that makes an effective leader. That's another great way of framing it. We'll close with a quote. It doesn't matter what the press says. It doesn't matter what the politician or the mobs say. It doesn't matter if the whole country decides that something wrong is something right. This nation was founded on one principle above all else, the requirement that we stand up for what we believe, no matter the odds or the consequences. When the mob and the press and the whole world tell you to move, your job is to plant yourself like a tree beside the river of truth and tell the whole world, no, you move. Dang. All right. Thanks for listening. Have a great day. Thank you so much for watching. If you would like to stay up to date on our latest videos, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon to receive notifications. If you're in a rush or on the road, you can still join us on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you find your podcasts. If you want to learn more about us or our guests, please visit our website at mays.tamu.edu/podcasts. Also, please check out Mays Business School's academic programs. They're the sponsors of our show, and you can find them in the description. Thanks, and gig 'em.